They arrived at first light. 3 dark SUVs rolled slowly up the gravel drive, tires grinding over the stones like a pack of suited vultures on the prowl. I sat on the porch of my lakefront cabin, black coffee steaming in my hand, boots propped on the railing, when the so-called HOA security crew stepped out, looking ready to storm a drug lord's hideout. Trouble is, this isn't some fancy subdivision. They were deep on my property, uninvited. I live deep in the rolling hills of Tennessee, surrounded by 50 acres of pine, creek beds, and the kind of quiet you only earn when you own every surrounding acre. The cabin has been in my family for generations. My grandfather built it, board by board, with his own hands. For the last year, I've been tangled in a ridiculous feud with the HOA from the sprawling McMansion neighborhood down the ridge. Their property line barely brushes one corner of my woods. But ever since then, they've acted as if they own me. It began with polite letters, then snide notices about unauthorized structures and visual blight from my dock. Next came the fines I never paid, the warnings I never answered. I thought they'd eventually lose interest. Apparently not. Today, they turned it up a notch. The security team strutted forward in tactical boots, dark shades, radios crackling on their shoulders, like they were about to clear a hostile compound. One of them even carried a clipboard. I stayed seated and let them speak first. Sir, we're here to enforce HOA compliance regulations. You are currently in violation. I laughed loud enough to echo off the water. You're about 6 miles outside your jurisdiction, fellas. We have authority to conduct an inspection. That's when I rose. 6'3" is Army Ranger, built like an oak stump. I gave them one calm warning, get off my land. Now, they didn't listen. They started moving toward the boathouse, and that's when everything went south fast. I didn't throw the first punch, but the moment one of them clamped a hand on my forearm and announced I was detained, muscle memory took over. I pivoted, drove a knee into his thigh, then swept his legs. He hit the ground howling. The second man reached for something on his belt, pepper spray maybe. I closed the distance, locked his wrist, twisted it back, and drove a sharp elbow into his ribs. He fell into the grass, gasping. The third guy sprinted for the lead SUV. I let him go. The other 2 were still down, writhing. One clutched his chinas. It had shattered, and I just stood on the porch with arms folded, watching them crawl back toward their vehicles like injured possums. The clipboard guy tried to save face, even while gripping his ruined leg. You assaulted us. We'll file charges. I tilted my head and looked straight through him. No, son. You trespassed on private property and laid hands on me. What I did was self-defense. And trust me, the sheriff around here knows me a damn sight better than he knows you. HOA leeches. They didn't have much fight left after that. They hauled themselves into the SUV, clutching radios and groaning, then limped away with a crumpled front bumper and one tire hissing flat. I may or may not have scattered a few caltrops near the gate earlier just in case they got bold. Once the dust settled, I called Sheriff Danner. Small county lawman, honest as they come. He's been out to the cabin plenty of times, usually for coffee and venison jerky, not emergencies. This time, I laid it out plain. HOA security goons just rolled up trying to detain me on my own land. I put 2 of them down. You'll probably get a call. Danner let out a long breath. You serious? As a heart attack. He didn't lecture me. Didn't even sound shocked. All right. I'll deal with it. Don't speak to anyone else. If they file anything, we'll sort it on paper. But between you and me, they crossed a line. Here's what really set my blood on fire. This wasn't their first attempt to rattle me. They'd been testing the waters for months. Last month, they threatened a lawsuit over shoreline alteration. The month before that, they demanded access to my private drive to inspect erosion measures. I told them to go inspect their own hind ends. What the HOA refuses to understand is simple. I don't live inside their manicured little world. I don't answer to landscaping boards, and I damn sure don't take orders from a pack of weekend commandos with clipboards. My land stood here generations before their cookie-cutter houses, and it'll still be here long after their vinyl siding rots into the dirt. But now, they'd crossed into dangerous territory. They'd sent armed men to intimidate me. In doing so, they'd started a war. I wasn't planning to sit and wait for round two. I already had something in mind, something decisive. If they wanted a fight, I was going to teach them what real country justice feels like. And next time, I wouldn't hold back. Have you ever watched a possum play dead? Looks weak and pitiful, doesn't it? But give it a little time, and the second your back is turned, it's up again, chewing through everything you own. That's exactly what the HOA did. For about a week, everything went quiet. No more black SUVs creeping up the drive. No letters. No phony citations. But I wasn't fool enough to think they'd surrendered. Bullies never quit just because they get hit hard. They switch strategies. Sure enough, one evening a neighbor who lives nearer the development rang me up late. She'd spotted a pair of men creeping along the far edge of my property right where my land meets the back of the lake, tucked out of sight from the main road. Flashlights sweeping, clipboards in hand, cameras clicking. They were scouting me. I didn't lose my temper. I got inventive. The rear of my ranch slopes down into a thick stand of woods that hides the water's edge. Gorgeous view. Perfect cover, too. Easy to conceal trail cameras and set a few quiet traps. So that night, with the frogs croaking and the breeze rustling the pines, I went to work. First, I rewired the big floodlights by the boathouse so they'd trigger off a hidden motion sensor. Anyone slipping around in the dark would suddenly find themselves spotlighted like a buck on the first morning of rifle season. Next, I laid out a subtle greeting, some old scrap fencing, half buried beneath loose leaves and bent just enough to catch an ankle if someone wasn't paying attention. The finishing touch was a Bluetooth speaker tucked beneath the deck. I'd recorded the audio from a friend's cattle operation deep, furious bull snorts, close and real enough to make your heart jump. 2 nights later, the HOA rolled out its next inspection team. 2 men in khakis and safety vests, sneaking through the trees with small notepads and flashlights. They had no idea they were already on camera. Then bam, the motion sensor tripped. Floodlights blazed on like daylight. The speaker roared with angry bull bellows. One guy let out a shriek straight out of a horror movie. The other caught his foot on the buried fencing, pitched forward, and slid face first halfway into the lake, splashing, swearing, thrashing in the cold water. I watched the whole thing live on my phone, grinning the entire time. The best part, they didn't call anyone, didn't file a report. They just scrambled out, dripping wet, dragging what was left of their pride back to their vehicle. The next morning, I uploaded the trail cam footage online. Title: HOA inspectors discover what happens when you trespass on private ranch land. It exploded, went viral in under 3 hours. Locals ate it up. Even Sheriff Danner called me, laughing so hard he could hardly get words out. The HOA, though, they weren't amused. That video was the breaking point for them. Next, they sent lawyers. They must have figured paperwork would finally do what their security goons couldn't. A sharply dressed attorney rolled up to my gate in a pressed suit, polished shoes, and a smirk that said he'd never split firewood or mucked a stall in his life. The name was Brett something. Doesn't matter. He carried a thick envelope and an attitude like he was delivering justice from on high. I met him halfway down the drive, axe resting loosely on my shoulder. Not a threat, just a reminder of whose ground he was standing on. "You've been served," he announced, thrusting the papers forward as if they might burn me. I took the envelope, flipped through it, and gave a low whistle. Trespassing, assault, emotional distress, property damage. You fellas really get imaginative when you're angry. You'll hear from us in court, he said. I smiled, looking forward to it. What they never bothered to learn, what they didn't even check, was that I'd already retained counsel months earlier. My cousin is one of the best civil attorneys in Nashville. When he reviewed the HOA's entire pattern of behavior, he summed it up in 6 words I'll carry forever: these clowns are going to hang themselves. Court day arrived. The HOA showed up in forest suits, smug expressions, ready to drown me in legal filings. Then my cousin walked in carrying a thick binder of timestamps, affidavits, and most importantly, crystal clear video evidence. The judge was a local man, son of a farmer, raised just 20 miles from my ranch. He understood the land. He knew how HOAs had been creeping into rural counties, bullying longtime owners, He watched the trail cam footage twice. He even asked the bailiff to replay the moment the inspector belly flopped into the lake. The whole courtroom burst out laughing. The HOA table did not. My cousin then laid out the complete timeline, repeated unauthorized entries, threatening letters, the attempted detention on my own property, and precise county-verified property lines. Their case fell apart like dry-rotted rope. The judge dismissed all their claims with prejudice, no refiling allowed. Then, for good measure, he hit the HOA with fines for harassment, unlawful trespass, and the damage one of their goons had done to my boathouse siding during their clumsy spy mission. The HOA president turned the color of a ripe tomato. Brat T, the lawyer, slipped out like a whipped dog. It was done. The following morning, I posted one final video, a slow, peaceful pan across the lake at sunrise. Caption read, "To every HOA member who thinks they own everything, stay off my land. You've been warned. Now, the road stays quiet. The dock is calm. The only footprints on my property are the ones I leave myself. But I still keep the caltrops near the gate just in case. When the system breaks down, a rancher steps up and delivers justice." If you enjoyed this showdown, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and tell me, have you ever had to stand your ground against bullies like these? And don't forget to subscribe for more real deal country justice stories. This was only the beginning.